Welcome to the lesson on ratios. So before we get started, I just want to make it clear that you are allowed to use a calculator in today's lesson. Okay, you're allowed to use a calculator when you're doing your homework. It's fine. Use a calculator. Okay, so ratios. Ratios actually used in your everyday life a fair bit. For example, when you're making cordial. Now, if you look at the bottom here, if you look at the serving instructions, how do you actually make cordial? And you will see that it's ratios. You have to mix 1 part cordial with 4 parts water. So we can say cordial to water is equal to 1 part cordial to 4 parts water. That's how I would write it mathematically speaking. That's how I would write it mathematically. And today, I guess we're going to talk about the mathematics of it and how we can, for example, if you wanted to make 3 liters of cordial, how would you go about doing that, mathematically speaking? And that's a very realistic question. That's a very, very real life question. You may have to do that sometime in the future. So let's get started. So consider the ratio, and I guess the best way to go about learning this, I guess I'll explain this. We'll talk about ratios and so on as we look at a question, okay? And that's probably the best way to learn about it. Okay, it can be a little abstract at times. Anyway, consider the ratio of boys to girls of 5 to 7. That means for every 5 boys, there are 7 girls. Now, that is not saying that there are 5 boys and 7 girls. That's not what it's saying. There might be, we don't know. But the point is, for every 5 boys, there are 7 girls. Now, there might be 10 boys and there might be 14 girls. It's possible because for every 5 boys, there are 7 girls. So if you do it twice, if there's 2 lots of 5 boys and there's 10 boys, there's going to be 2 lots of 7 girls. Now there's 14 girls. 5 to 7. Okay, it means for every 5 boys, there are 7 girls. What is the total number of parts? Now, this is very, very important to understand. We want to think of this in terms of parts. There are 5 parts here and there's 7 parts there for a total of 12 parts. 5 plus 12. 5 plus 7 is 12 parts. And that's very, very important to understand. You'll end up calculating total number of parts frequently. Now it's saying what fraction of the total boys. Now I see students students answer this by writing 5/7 all the time. That is incorrect because it's saying what fraction of the total are boys. And the answer is, well, you have 5 parts boys out of 12 parts total. So the answer to B is actually 5 out of 12. Because you have 5 parts boys out of 12 total parts. 5/12. And what fraction of total are girls? 7 out of 12 total. 7 girls out of 12 total. Now, if it says what fraction, or if it said, write a fraction of boys to girls, then you might write 5/7. But it doesn't say that. It says what fraction of the total are girls, okay, of the total. If there are 24 students in total, how many of them are boys? Okay, if you have 24 students in total, how many of them are boys? Well, the best way to do this is to use the fractions we've just made. If you have, we're trying to find the boys, right? And boys are going to be 5/12. The boys are going to be 5 out of 12. 5 out of 12, the fraction is 5 out of 12 of the total. Of means multiply. Of the total. Total is 24 here. Okay, because we have 5/12 of boys out of a total of 24. So what is 5/12 of 24? And we simply use a calculator. 5/12 multiplied by 24, which is 10. And so there are 10 boys. If there were 36 students in total, how many of them are girls? Well, I know 7/12 of the total are girls. And so 7/12 out of 36 is equal to what? And so do 7 out of 12 multiplied by 36, and you get 21. 21. And these are two different questions. Just keep in mind that has 24 students total. This has 36 students in total. And so I guess the main takeaway, the first takeaway, I guess not the main, but like the first takeaway of this is ratios are related to fractions. They're very, very similar. Ratios and fractions. I'm just gonna move. Whoops. Okay, so ratios and fractions are very similar. That's the first thing that you need to keep in mind. It's the first thing that should jump out at you. Anytime there's a ratio question, you're pretty much dealing with a fractions question. So yeah. Ratios, fractions. Okay, moving on. Let's have another look. Simplify the ratio 49 to 28. Now, as I said, as soon as you see ratios, you should think to yourself fractions. And that's exactly what you do. You use a calculator. You write 49 over 28. And the answer's there. The calculator will simplify the ratio for you, and you get 7 over 4. 7 over 4. And so, a very quick summary. If you have A to B, you can put this in the calculator by writing A over B. Always. A to B is going to be A over B. Now, sometimes you might have, yeah, it'll, I don't want to confuse you. That's what you do. A to B is the same as, A to B is literally the same as A over B. Any questions? Okay, moving on. So the last question for today before you guys get started with the work. $700 of prize money is to be divided into the ratio 5 to 3 to 2. Okay. What that means is to give the top 3 winners. So the first place prize might get 5 as first, and that's second, and this is third. Okay, and $7 of prize money is to be divided into ratio 5 to 3 to 2 to give to the top 3 winners. So how much will each person get? So as a general rule of thumb, when you have this type of question, the first thing you do is calculate the total number of parts. Pardon?
So what do you do, like 5 plus 3 plus 2?
Yes. So if you look in the first example we did, this is how you proceed with most ratio questions. Just look over here. The first thing you do, the total number of parts. And then you calculate each of those ratios out of the total. So a fraction of the boys out of the total, fraction of the girls out of the total. And then you can do the fraction multiplied by the total, and you get the answer. Okay, so we'll look at it again. First thing you do, total number of parts, 5 plus 7. Okay, so that's what we do over here as well. First thing you do, you calculate total number of parts. 5 plus 3 is 8 plus 2 is 10. 10 total parts. That's what we write. 10 total parts. Now I'm going to write the fraction. So write total, you write fraction, then you multiply the fraction with what, with whatever. So first thing, total parts. Second thing, fraction. So I want to know the value of the larger portion. So 5. So 5 out of 10. It's 5 parts out of the total 10 parts. 5 out of 10. And now we multiply by 700. And that's it. And you put in a calculator, that's going to be half. That's $350. Without using a calculator, you should be able to see that 5 over 10 is half. Half of 700 is $350. And that's pretty much it. That's all there is to this particular lesson. Now, I just want to reiterate again that ratios and fractions are closely aligned, closely linked. And for ratios questions, you generally, the first step you want to take is calculate total number of parts. And second thing, write down the fraction. You write down each of these as a fraction of the total number of parts. So that's going to be 5 out of 10. That's going to be 3 out of 10. That's going to be 2 out of 10. And that goes a long way to helping you solve ratio questions. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the recording and then you guys can get started.